Good afternoon, Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League fans, and welcome to Episode 2 here in Season 2 of the mmjhl podcast. One moment. Oh, a little frog in my throat today, but yeah, I'm happy to be here. I hope you're all happy to be here tuning in on this beautiful Friday. It's nice and sunny outside today. Can't wait to get out and enjoy the sunshine later on this beautiful Friday. But yeah, for this episode, we're brought to you by Terrico Goaltenders, McKenna Fasteners and Tools, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. We're less than a week away from the mmjhl officially dropping the puck on their season. As for us here at G Show Productions, um, we're going to be there for the opening game as it'll be played at St. Vital Centennial Arena between the Victorias and the Fort Garry Twins coming up on Thursday next week on September 26th for your home of hockey in Manitoba for 2024-2025. But yeah, as for this week's episode of the mmjhl, as we get closer and closer to puck drop, some things have changed in this league. Of course, they change from year to year. Players age out. Some players may not come back and play, although sometimes that's pretty rare that happens, if it happens at all. But as for players that graduate out of the league, age out of the league, whatever way you want to phrase it, it's always interesting to see what they do afterwards. And for legendary mmjhl goaltender, former St. James Junior Canuck goaltender now in Noah Gilbert, he couldn't stay away from this league that he loves so much. He's going to be a goalie coach this season with the St. James Junior Canucks. I had a chance to ask Noah in an interview last night with him, as it's pre-recorded, about what went into the decision to come back, talking about, the coaching staff he's going to be able to work with, talking about, just his experience as a player and how he feels that it could help translate to his coaching position this year. As a goalie coach on the Canucks staff, and much more on this edition of the mmjhl podcast, brought to you by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders. Noah Gilbert joining the show next. It's former mmjhl goaltender for the St. James Junior Canucks, Canucks mmjhl legend, all-time great in Noah Gilbert, joining this edition of the mmjhl podcast, now in a different role in the league, on the coaching staff with this Junior Canucks team. Noah, I mean, last time we talked, we were just chatting before we went live here for this interview, but what your next steps would be after the mmjhl in hockey, and here you are staying in the league. What came to the decision for yourself to take on this role?
Well, obviously, it was it's kind of hard to leave, right? It's the game you kind of grew up loving, right? So it's kind of hard to leave, especially an organization like that treated me so well over the years. Great people within, right? So it was kind of hard for me to leave. So, but when Justin Steves, the president of the team, came up to me after the season, not too long after we won, and was like, "Hey, do you want to? Would you mind, or would you want to be a goalie coach next season?" And I said, didn't even hesitate. I said, "Yep, would love to." So yeah, that's kind of what brought me back. Yeah.
And here we are. For yourself, you've played with, all the players that are returning this season. You're going to get to know some new players. Of course, you already have been throughout this training camp process. But what's that dynamic been like? Going from a player to player relationship to now being a coach and having that relationship with these players now that way.
Well, obviously, like you said, there's obviously going to be a bit of a difference there, right? Player to player is easy. That's your family in there, right? I'm not saying it's any different because I'm a coach now, but uh o- it's like you're playing with your brothers, and now you're not the brother anymore, you're like one of the parents, if that kind of
Yeah.
is a good analogy, right? But no, I kind of, after the first skate, everyone was like, "Oh, welcome back, Gibby," and like kind of giving me fist bumps and stuff, and I'm like, "This is cool" and stuff. But I kind of have to understand that, okay, now I'm on the coaching side of it. I still love all those guys in that dressing room, right? But I kind of have
Yeah.
to act as a coach, right? So that'll
Yeah.
be a little different of a change, but I'm excited for it.
No, yeah, for sure. And
Mm.
only, time will tell in terms of how you adjust. I feel like, you're going to make a great goalie coach. I mean, players playing the game, and I feel like you got an open mind to you as well about, being in this new position and taking, advice and getting mentorship from Scott
Yeah.
Forsan, a goalie coach that you've been able to work with. How exciting is that going to be to now coach alongside him?
So when, like I said at the start, when Justin asked me to be the goalie coach, he wasn't sure if Scott was coming back, so that's why I got offered. And then he calls me again about a month or two later, and he says, Scott's going to come back. Is it all right if you guys do it half and half? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to, because Scott's been a great mentor to me over the last 5 years. Uh, he's been busy from time to time, right? But whenever he was able to make it out to practice, he was someone I always felt like I could chat with. Like, I can't go up to Blair and be like talking goalie stuff to him, right? So it was very nice to have a guy like Scott out there where I can kind of have someone to relate to, right? And learn from him, apply the stuff that he taught me into games and stuff. So it's going to be pretty fun working alongside Scott. I know we're staying in touch a lot regarding this season and how we're going to do things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
You're gonna have not only a chance to coach with, like you said, someone you've had a chance to be coached by and learn from through these past 5 seasons as a player, but you're gonna be also coaching your former teammate now in
Mhm.
Connor Murphy this season. As a player, I mean, obviously, your strengths as a goaltender, but as a coach, it's a bit different, right, from being a player, as you know. How are you going to be taking your, I guess, past experiences and maybe coaching in other places on the side, and your experiences as a player to translate it into, your coaching, abilities, and how you're going to be operating this season as a goalie coach?
Right. So I know with my like how my coaching style goes is, and I'm sure it's a lot of coaches too, is like they take from experience that they've learned from the past, right? Like
Right.
I know it's funny, when I work at the rink over on South Landing Boulevard over there, I know sometimes I teach my goal when I teach my goalies, I'm like, okay, I definitely don't teach or kind of like give out tips and stuff on how I would play, because ideally how I would play is every goalie's different, if that kind of
Yeah.
answers the question a little better, because every goalie's different, every goalie has different strengths to their games and different weaknesses, right? So you got to find ways to build their strengths even stronger, right? And then eliminate all those kind of weaknesses within, right? But experience from playing, especially in the league too, is definitely going to be one of those things that I can kind of hope that'll help pass along to Connor and Aiden this year.
Right.
So, right. So yeah, that's kind of about it for that. But yeah.
No, for sure. And
Mm.
I think that that's a great mindset to have, knowing that your style isn't going to work for everyone. Like you said, right?
Right.
Everyone is a different player in their own way. They're similar players, but everyone has their differences in one way or another. For Connor, he had a strong year as your backup last season, a 917 save percentage, going 15-3. Going to have a strong team in front of him once again. I guess, what have you been working on as of right now through this training camp with Connor? Has it been, more of the technical side of things, I guess, to start things off?
So with Connor, I actually got the chance to work with him a little bit yesterday, because usually when you do those team practices as a goalie coach, you don't get too much time to work with the goalie, right? You get like 5, 10 minutes here and there, right? But when I was working with him yesterday, it was just about making sure he's feeling good,
Right.
right? Heading into the season. Like nothing where he kind of has to like overthink and be like, oh, am I doing this too much, or am I not doing enough of this, right? Just making sure that he feels good, right? Because that's kind of one of the lead ways or keys to consistency and success is right, feeling good, feeling confident, right? So just making sure he's up to par and feeling good, right?
Yeah,
So
sure. I guess one last question about him specifically is being around him and watching him play. And now at this point, what would you say would be the biggest strength in or strengths in Connor Murphy's game?
so I always tell him this too, and I tell a lot of other people this too, is that yes, I got more minutes than him last year. It's a rookie. It's very understandable why I got more minutes, but he moves way better than I do. I was kind of like I would get from A to B and I'd be there because I would know where the plays were gonna end up going, right? But
Yeah.
doesn't matter for him. He moves way better than I do. His save selection's awesome. He's a solid goalie. That's a fact. That's from what I saw last year. He's a solid goalie, solid kid too. So his mindset's going to be great heading into the year for sure.
Well, that's saying a lot coming from an mmjhl and St. James Junior Canucks legend and some big shoes for sure, I think, for Connor Murphy to fill this year. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But a big part of, this team's success throughout the past 3 seasons has been everything. Great goaltending from you, star-studded talent up front and on the back end. A team that's bought in and has won in many different ways, whether it's been you you know, making the clutch saves to really make the difference in a game, or the offense taking over, or the defense, stymieing teams. Now, this team looking to do something that hasn't been done since 2011, 2012, when Charles Wood did it, which would be to win 4 in a row. With a very motivated coach, I know that I've had a chance to talk to Blair quite a bit over text, and he's fired up to get going. It's funny, he actually ended up being the coach of the team that beat me in my final year of minor hockey, which seeing that kind of brought back some memories of him being on that Canadians coaching staff. But I mean, how's everyone feeling so far heading into this year with the expectations being, I guess, pretty high going in and going for 4 in a row?
So obviously, from what I've noticed around the room, the guys are excited to be back, which is obviously a big thing, right? Having that excitement and willing and wanting to play is a big thing, right? Um, in preseason, I haven't been able to catch a lot of the games. I caught a bit of the Charleswood 3-2 loss there. But I from what I've been told is we're kind of struggling to put pucks in the net. We're doing not too bad at keeping the puck out. We're just struggling to put pucks in the net, which is from the last 3 seasons, not really that doesn't sound right, if that makes sense. So I'm sure we'll find our touch soon enough. Another thing too is I'm not trying to call out shots against the league, but I'm from what I've seen and heard that other teams are kind of dressing their full rosters in preseason against our rookies. So, I mean, it's fair because if you kind of lose to us enough, you're probably going to get sick of it over and over again, right? So, it's all fairness to them, but yeah, as of right now, I kind of find that we're struggling to put the puck in the net, but as the season goes on, we'll find our touch. Our guys will
Yeah.
get that fire under them, right? So I'm not too worried, but I think the excitement that the excitement for them to come back to the rink and get started again is I've noticed it right away. So
Yeah, and I mean it's only preseason, right? Like
mhm.
this doesn't matter when we're talking about
Yeah,
playoff time and championships, and you know that better than anyone else, right? You've been
exactly.
3 years in
Yeah.
a row. But yeah, this team, I mean, losing top scorer in Tyrone Willen, losing yourself, great leaders in Brady Whiteley, the captain, and Kale Price, but still Rory Neal is back, best player in the league, I'd say. I,
Mhm.
I think that's been undisputed throughout the past few years, even though, you could argue, of course, Willen, but so much talent coming back on this team still. A coaching staff that has familiarity with this group, that's been involved with this group. I guess what's going to be the building blocks to getting this team up to speed? Is it working on systems early on? What's going to be the goal throughout this year to, temper expectations along with and trying to also, I guess, succeed in this league again?
So obviously, I believe on Monday we kind of did like our not really like our final round of cuts, but like we kind of narrowed it down a lot. Like we had a lot of bodies at the start of camp, and then after Monday, we kind of narrowed it down to like almost our full roster, right? So I think starting to get into kind of systems, right? Blair's gone, and it's now Blake Harris, who great guy. I loved playing under him when he was an assistant coach, right? So it's going to be a different look for the boys, but I think I have my full confidence in Blake to kind of keep the team in the right direction. So now that we have like kind of our full roster right now, I think getting into the systems will help. Starting to play regular season games that are meaningful, right? That'll kind of help get the confidence going, right? But yeah, like we have a solid team heading into the year, I think. So yeah, once they kind of get the couple meaningful games under the belt, right? I think we'll be back in our stride.
This team back in preseason action coming up this weekend against, I guess, the Charleswood Hawks tomorrow night. A team that, you guys faced off against last season in the semifinals and beat them. Not sure what the rosters are going to look like. Pretty much, they're going to look like pretty much close to opening night rosters at this point, since these are the last like few games. Is that going to be the case? Do you have any knowledge on that? Where Blake's going to go coming up this weekend with 2 games left on the preseason schedule?
I'm not 100% sure what the rosters will look like, especially Charles Woods, but I based off of experience from last year, I remember the last 2 preseason games were pretty much when it was like our full roster versus the other team's full roster, right? So you could kind of expect some higher paced play heading into this weekend for sure.
And Noah Gilbert joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast, brought to you by Mick Fasteners and Tools, Goaltenders, Can Central Sports Cars and Memorabilia, as well as Terraco. For Terraco, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry. Be sure to check out their website for more details at terraco.ca about who they are. And yeah, for Noah, I think that this is a wonderful addition to a St. James Junior Canucks coaching staff that has that familiarity right within the coaching staff, not just with Gilbert. These players playing with him just last year and some throughout the past few years, but you also promote, and I'm pretty sure I called him Blair by accident, but Blake Harris, new head coach for this team. You promote him from assistant coach to head coach as he's been on the staff throughout the past few seasons, and to have Scott Forsan back is huge, I think, for this first year, the development for Noah Gilbert as a goaltending coach in this league. But yeah, for St. James, like Connor Murphy, it's going to be interesting to see if he can take an even bigger step this season coming up. As Noah said, he feels like he can move better than him, and that kind of sounds scary because Noah Gilbert moved pretty darn well, and you can make the argument this is the greatest goaltender to ever lace him up in the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League. But you still got players like Rory Neal out in front, Payson Butler. He's probably gonna return. I've heard, from some sources that I won't say, but yeah, heard that he's kind of on the fence, but apparently he should be playing. We'll keep you updated on if he'll be playing on St. James this year. But that was a huge ad that they made last season that benefits them this year, right? With knowing he has 1 year left on his career in the MMJHL before you traded for him at the deadline last year. But you still got players like a Griffin Height there, some really good returning players, and the rookies. St. James has a lot of good talent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some rookies making some impact. And they've definitely found some great ones in these past 3 seasons where they've won 3 championships in a row. Can they make it 4 in a row this year? Trying to become the first team to do it since the 2011-2012 Charleswood Hawks. It will be interesting to see for sure. We are going to take another transition, and I'll be back to update you on the upcoming schedule for what is going to wrap up this year's preseason in the league. And we'll also be taking you through opening weekend, too. That will be coming to you next weekend here on the mmjhl podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca, brought to you by Terraco, make Cannon Fasters and Tools, Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. More mmjhl action coming up next. Welcome back to the mmjhl podcast. If you're just joining the show, Noah Gilbert just joined me here to talk about, him becoming a goalie coach in this league, the expectations, and, what it's been like so far, all that good stuff. You can rewind in this episode during the live stream and any time after this episode is done streaming here on YouTube to watch that interview back. But yeah, it's a Friday here. We're less than a week away from the mmjhl starting its 2024-2025 regular season. And as for the preseason schedule, we got 4 games that will be played tonight between the St. Boniface Riels and the Fort Garry Twins, the St. James Junior Canucks and the Charleswood Hawks, the Raiders Junior Hockey Club versus the River East Royal Knights, and Stonewall and Pembina Valley, the 2 Royal Manitoba teams in this league, taking on each other at Stonewall tonight at 8 p.m. Tomorrow there will only be 1 game in the league of 2 teams that are the only 2 teams not to be in action tonight in terms of the St. Vital Junior Victorias and the Transcona Railer Express. That game will be played at St. Vital on Saturday. Sunday's rematch between these 2 teams to end off their preseason will be played at Ed Golding Arena, aka East End Arena. For the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, they'll be going on the road to face off against St. James in their preseason finale, as all 10 teams will be in action on Sunday to wrap up this year's preseason. And yeah, there's been a lot of going on, I guess, in preseason, as there usually is in the mmjhl this season. They just concluded the East End preseason tournament, or the Transcon Railer Express preseason tournament. That's been held for the past 7 years now at East End Arena. Fort Garry, Stonewall, Pembina Valley, Transcona, St. Boniface, and St. Vital all competed at East End, as the 4 teams that did in St. James, the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, Charleswood, and River East all played preseason games this past weekend, just not in that tournament. In terms of what the scores were from this past weekend, we'll just go with the records, actually, because going through the scores may take a bit too long for each and every team, and I don't want to bore you all with that, just talking about numbers and that stuff. But yeah, it was the St. Boniface Riels who had the only perfect weekend. They won pretty convincingly over some of these teams, one notably in the Stonewall Jets 9-2. But from what I heard, Stonewall dressed a lot of rookies in that game compared to the Riels, who maybe dressed a bit more vets. So yeah, pretty interesting about this tournament is some teams go with a more vet heavy lineup in some games, some go with a more rookie heavy lineup in others, and some just all the way through seem to really just deploy a good mix. It really depends on what they have in camp, I guess, in terms of the margin of vets to rookies or new players coming to try out. But yeah, St. Vital as well as Fort Garry both had pretty solid weekends, both going 2-1. The only teams to go winless this past weekend were teams like the Stonewall Jets, as well as the Pembina Valley Twisters, and I believe the Transcona Railer Express. No, they beat the Twisters. So yeah, it was Stonewall and Pembina Valley who end up being the only teams that went winless this weekend. And yeah, all of these teams, of course, like I mentioned, and as we've mentioned here, will be back in action coming up for preseason tonight in the league, as Fort Garry, St. Boniface, all those teams will be in action this weekend. Stonewall, Pembina Valley going at each other, both looking for their first wins of the preseason. But as for, you know, the upcoming schedule for what should be a fantastic opening weekend of MMJHL regular season hockey. It's going to start off with us, and this photo courtesy of Icewave Media, St. Vitel's Tyler Rubini, who he'll be back. Apparently he had some contemplating about potentially not coming back this season, but from what I've heard, really likes the group this year for St. Vital, and they should have a great team. They'll be taking on the Twins. 7:30 p.m. will be the puck drop of that one as a new season begins in the MMJHL. And as for us on G Show Productions, we are going to be broadcasting every weekend here in the MMJHL 2024-2025 season, where we'll be coming to you with games on Fridays, Sundays, as well as Vic's home games on Thursdays. All season long, we are planning in terms of what we'll be doing for our Friday broadcast next week. As we just pull up the schedule, we're planning to broadcast at Seven Oaks Arena for the Raiders Junior Hockey Club against the Stonewall Jets, as those two teams will be taking on each other next Friday. Also games next Friday will be the St. James Junior Canucks opening up another title defense, going up against the Charleswood Hawks, 7:30 p.m. at Ab McDonald Arena. As for the St. Boniface Reals, they'll be at home to take on the Transcon Railer Express on Friday night at 7:30, and Pembina Valley will be opening up their season with their home opener on that Friday against the River East Royal Knights. As for St. Boniface, well, we'll be there to cover their game on Sunday afternoon next weekend, as they'll be welcoming in the defending champion St. James Junior Canucks. Game will start at 3 p.m. on that Sunday. And yeah, as for all teams in the league on that day, they'll all be in action, as 5 games will be on the schedule. The Raiders Junior Hockey Club hosting the Pembina Valley Twisters at Seven Oaks Arena, a rematch of last year's Elite 8 first-round matchup. The Transcon Railer Express taking on the Stonewall Jets. Transcona making it over Stonewall last year, finishing in that last playoff spot, a point over them. The Fort Garry Twins taking on the Charleswood Hawks, 2 teams that are going to be looking to make a lot of noise. That game going to be played at 6:30 p.m. at Century Arena. And then finally, the River East Royal Knights, looking to prove the whole MMJHL world wrong this season after finishing with a pretty bad record last season. But it was a year of learning and growing for this River East team, and they'll be putting, I guess, what they've learned and grown from to the test this upcoming Sunday next weekend against the St. Vital Junior Victorias at 7:30 p.m. at Terry Sawchuk Arena. Be sure to check out mmjhl.ca for more details on everything to do with this league and the schedule, the standings that'll be updated, and all that. And be sure to follow us here all season long. Subscribe and turn on notifications on the MMJHL podcast on our G Show Productions YouTube channel, as we'll be updating you on all the latest news happening around the MMJHL this season. Coming up next week, we're going to be releasing our first edition of this year's Power Rankings. We may be going live on Thursday for the podcast next week at St. Vital Centennial Arena, but I'm not too sure yet. Going to be a special MMJHL podcast episode 3 here in season 2. No doubt about it next week. We'll have the details for when that episode comes out at the start or near the start of next week on our social media pages, as well as on our website at gshow.ca. We're going to take one last transition here, folks, and I'll be back for some final words on this edition of the show on this Friday. Well, you've made it to the end of another edition of the MMJHL podcast. For episode 2, season 2, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Thank you to Noah Gilbert for coming on and being the guest in this week's episode. St. James, of course, opening up their title defense next Friday against the Charleswood Hawks at home. a few more preseason games to be played for them and the rest of the teams in the league. Be sure to check out, of course, mmjhl.ca for more details on everything happening around the league. But yeah, special thanks to our sponsors in Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terraco, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders for sponsoring another edition of this show. And as well as a special thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning into this week's episode. Next week's edition of the show either coming out on Thursday or Friday, and whatever day it will come out, that will be the set day for the rest of the year. Thinking it'll probably be Thursday with how fun Thursdays in this league are going to be this season at St. Vital Centennial Arena. Probably going to be doing a lot of on location stuff this season, so it should be a grand old time. Yeah, I cannot wait for the puck to drop on this season, ladies and gentlemen. And by the time the third episode of season 2 comes out, we'll be pretty much starting things up. So can't wait for you all to tune into our first MMJHL game day broadcast of the year next week on Thursday, live from St. Vital Centennial Arena between the Vicks and Twins. But until next time, folks, for this episode, like I said, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and waving goodbye on this Friday afternoon. It's about 12:32 here, so enjoy the rest of your day if you can. Get through work, and so you can get to the weekend, hey. And have a safe one. Have a fun time. Enjoy all the hockey you'll be taking in this weekend for sure, as MMJHL regular season starts next week, when we'll be coming to you next. Take care, everybody. So long.